What's going on, world? It's your boy at Big Game James _36, and I'm here with my partner Greg McGarity. And this is the Tax Layer Gator Bowl Drive to Selection presented by Toyota, where each and every week we go over the past weekend and the future weekend in college football and talk to you about how it reflects in beautiful thing live. It's all good. What's going on, world? It's your boy at Big Game James _36, and I'm here with Greg McGarity. And this is the Tax Layer Gator Bowl Drive to Selection presented by Toyota, where each and every week we go over the past weekend and the future weekend in college football and how it affects the Tax Layer Gator Bowl played here January 2nd in Jacksonville, Florida. ACC teams, SEC teams, again, we've got college football, regardless of how you feel. Every morning I must wake up. I am very depressed right now. But what gives me solace is that one of my rivals is very depressed as well. But what makes me feel bad is another one of my rivals right now is doing what they do for the last 23 years, be very excited for absolutely no reason. But we're excited because it's college football, which means the Tax Layer Gator Bowl is coming around. How are you doing? How does football season affect a former athletic director?
Great. I don't have to worry about who wins and loses. And at the end of the day, I can just go home after the game and watch the next game on TV. So all the stress and everything has been removed, and so football Saturdays are wonderful.
What is a football Saturday like, actually, for an athletic director at a big-time program when things are going well?
Well, you're gripping and grinning almost all day because you're constantly, just as football coaches are recruiting, athletic directors are always recruiting potential donors. And just being around specific groups, it may be alumni groups, it could be reunions, former Letterman. You're really just having no real concrete plans for the day. You're moving around. You're at the stadium early. You're thanking a lot of people that work in the stadium. And then once the game goes on, you're trying to really focus on the game, which is very, very difficult to do when you've got people that want some of your time. So a lot of things going on, but you're constantly on the move. And whether it's a noontime start or 7:30 start at night, you're starting early that morning.
And what's it like when the programs aren't doing so well?
Well, you have to. I think that's really when your leadership is tested during that time. I always felt like coaches, players, donors need you more when you're not winning. You still need to be seen. You can't just get into a bunker, have that type of mentality. So you're the leader. People are paying attention to body language. They're paying attention on how you're reacting, and you have to be upbeat throughout. Now, you may get by yourself in the car or in your office and sulk a little bit, but as a leader of the program, you've got to be resilient and you've got to be positive and be the one that sets the tone for the entire department.
Well, as the leader of the Tax Layer Gator Bowl, we've got some things that you got to go recruit. And we got a big weekend coming up this weekend where we're going to be able to watch some good football games. But can you talk to us a little bit about what's the upcoming weekend and what is the Chairman's Club? What is the Chairman's Club and what is Chairman's Club weekend?
Well, it's all our corporate donors, and we have probably 120 couples coming. So a total group of about 250. And it's a way for us to create an opportunity for a lot of networking. These corporate leaders know each other. They enjoy spending some downtime together at one of the best resorts in the world at the Omni at Amelia Island. So we're able to come in there Friday, show our appreciation to those that are very important to our operation. But at the same time, it's a way for them to kind of relax. They don't have to drive anywhere. They can just enjoy the sunshine, hopefully this weekend, and have a lot of fellowship and watch a lot of college football.
One of these years, I'm going to go and mess up the golf course. I can't. I like to look good and I like to swing the clubs. A lot of grass flies. So I would never have gotten a golf scholarship. I'm like Charles Barkley out there. I play like a fullback. Let's talk about this past weekend. What were some of the games that stood out to you? Let's go with the ACC slate. And what are our thoughts moving forward towards the Gator Bowl?
Well, last week in the ACC, I don't know if there were really very many impact games. You saw some teams get back on track, or Georgia Tech got back on track. Miami showed their domination in play. You had you had teams like North Carolina and North Carolina State basically, handle their business. So I think major things in the not a lot shook out in the ACC other than Memphis, beating FSU. That was probably the biggest surprise. But more or less, SEC was Wisconsin not really being competitive against Alabama, showing their will. Those top 6 teams that are right now in the top 10 showed their will. And I think even Georgia going to Lexington, that's a tough place to play, especially for Georgia. And for them to win the game showed a lot of mettle there as far as their ability to survive and advance. And sometimes that's all you have to do is survive and advance now.
Yeah, I always joke with people, at the end of the day, the goal is to win.
Absolutely.
And it's only one way to win. I don't know if anybody knows this, but this is some complex X's and O's. Football getting broke down. Right. If you score more points than the other team, you win. So that's
all that matters.
If there was a way to get half a point, you still win. But the point 13-12, good victory. Kirby's a really good coach. But Mark Stoops is again, defensive family. Very, 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 very astute. You can see those guys battling. Kirby did something, again, and this is probably one of the reasons why you made that hire. His quarterback transferred. And he didn't go in there, did not. Like, he went over there, found his guy, had Carson there as well, brought them both together, loved up on them. Those are some of the things that I actually absolutely love about good coaches. You're always coach if you're a good one. We talked about Alabama handling business, Georgia doing what they needed to do. A team like Kentucky can't come back here, though, correct? Because they just got here.
They could. There's nothing in our agreement with the SEC that prevents that from happening. But realistically, that's not what the fans want. That's not what the school wants. That's not what the conference wants. The thing that we look at this point in time is how many teams in the SEC are going to be bowl eligible. Because in the SEC, your conference games are tough enough. But when you lose a non-conference game, that presents a challenge to some schools. So as we see, for instance, Auburn and Arkansas play this weekend, that is a huge game, maybe not on the national scene, but for those teams trying to get to 6 wins, that's a huge chore right there because they both have a non-conference loss. Arkansas lost to Oklahoma State and Auburn lost to Cal. So they have no margin of error now based on who they play on the SEC side. So those are big games. And Florida, Mississippi State, the same dynamic. Nationally, I don't think a lot of people are going to care. That's a huge game towards getting to bowl eligibility for both of those schools. So we're watching that as well as probably the highlight, Tennessee going to Oklahoma. But you got the same dynamic on the ACC side as well. You got some teams that really, really need to win.
Definitely. And it's crazy this early in the season, you're still in – some teams are in situations where you have to win. If you don't win, you don't know where the next win's going to come. We talk about jokes about Florida when we talk about how the treacherous that November is. Same thing for Florida State right now. If they don't figure out a way to win against Cal coming up, where will that next win come? Because the win, it doesn't get any easier as you go back into conference. But before we even go into more of the games, the slate for Saturday of games that we're looking forward to, let's flesh out what you were just talking about a little bit more. How do we get to select our teams, and how does the college football playoff affect us?
Well, on the ACC side is not as complex as it's going to be on the SEC side, it appears. For instance, right now, if you took 6 teams out of the SEC pool for us, I don't think the SEC will get 6, 5, maybe 4, but let's just pretend that they're going to get 6. Then who else in the SEC is left over to fill not only the bowl in Orlando, which has the first pick, but then to feed the other 6 bowls, which we're kind of in that 6-pack, along with Houston, Nashville, Tampa. That's where those 6 teams, at least 6 or 7, have to have 6 wins, okay? But the strength of the 6 teams that are currently in the top 10 in the country right now, they're predicted probably to win all of their games against the teams that are not in the top 6. the ACC side, it doesn't look like the league is as deep as it has been. So with Miami up high, Clemson's in the top 25, ACC maybe one or maybe two. But our position much more stronger there because once the teams that feed into the college football playoff in the ACC, all those that don't qualify, they're in our pool automatically with San Diego and Orlando. So, in the ACC side, we'll probably get anywhere from the second to the fifth seeded or fifth ranked team within the ACC. So I'm not as worried about the ACC as I am about the SEC.
Which could put you anywhere again. It could be, like you were saying, you can have Clemson, Miami. Obviously, one of those two are trending toward winning the conference and going to the college football playoff. But from there, you can get one of those guys, but you also have Louisville. You also have Notre Dame, Virginia Tech. You have, I'm blanking out. Who knows? SMU could go on a tear. Cal is undefeated right now. So, I mean, who knows what even though they would probably go to San Diego before they come out this way. But there'll be more teams with better records that could come here as opposed to the SEC because there's going to be so many guys getting the opportunity to go. So that makes sense. Any other games outside of this that they're just interesting or exciting that we should be paying attention to of note?
Well, it's going to be interesting. LSU is going to play another former Pac-10 member, UCLA, coming to Baton Rouge. So that'll be a way for LSU to maybe atone for their loss to Southern Cal earlier. But you've got a lot of non-conference competition in play this week. With the one thing that kicks in is every team has 2 byes this year instead of a traditional 1 bye. So you'll see a lot of teams that are inactive this week. Georgia and Alabama are not playing. They have a bye week. And then next week, it really picks up with a lot of schools that have a bye week. But a lot of games that don't affect the ACC or the SEC, perhaps in the Big 12, you've got some dynamics there where Kansas State, I think, playing Kansas State's going up against, let's see here. Kansas State is
BYU?
No, you may have to edit some of this stuff out, but it's what was it? Utah at Oklahoma State. So those 2 Big 12 teams right there, they need to. Whoever wins that game is going to be in a better position to maybe be in the top 10 eventually. So that's probably the other game that we'll be watching, just how it affects the overall standings.
Gotcha. So this weekend coming up, ACC slate, you've got NC State, Clemson, Georgia Tech, Louisville, Cal at FSU. What are your thoughts about those 3 games?
Well, I think if Clemson wants to really, truly get back on track, it'll be their first time to really show themselves against a team that's always been competitive against them, NC State. Georgia Tech at Louisville is going to be really interesting as far as Louisville being tested. Can Georgia Tech win on the road? I know they lost at Syracuse earlier, but that's a huge game for both those teams. And then, FSU needs to get really back on track beating Cal because we'd love to see them become bowl eligible. They got a lot of work to do, but it's not going to happen unless they start winning. And I think Cal's a great opportunity for them to start Saturday.
We'll also see if the loss of Alex Atkins due to NCAA sanctions had that much of an effect. A lot of people say Mike Norvell calls the plays. Well, it ain't look good the last 3 weeks. So maybe Alex Atkins called the plays. So we'll see how that goes now that they're, from a coaching staff perspective, at full strength. Going to the SEC, you mentioned Bama, Georgia on bye weeks. We've got a game that's kind of important for both teams, UF at Mississippi State. Somebody's got to win. We call that somebody's got to win bowl. Another one, Arkansas at Auburn. 2 games that if you're just watching, you're going to watch them because they're there because you love football, but not as exciting as this name brand matchup, but which would be Tennessee at Oklahoma. Why should we be paying attention to that game, and what kind of dynamics would that have for the Gator Bowl?
Well, Tennessee has a very winnable schedule throughout the year. It'll be the first SEC game for Oklahoma in Norman. So Josh Heupel, who won a national championship as a quarterback at Oklahoma, is coming back home. Brent Venables, who has coached at Clemson for a while before he came to Oklahoma, you've got a lot of familiarity there in that weekend. And I think we've all seen what Tennessee can do. Let's see what Oklahoma can do at home, because Oklahoma doesn't have a lot of margin of error, again, because they play a lot of the top 6 teams that are ranked right now in the SEC. So if your schedule is leaning towards those opponents, again, that are ranked right now, the group of 6 SEC teams that are up there in the AP rankings, you're probably not going to be favored against them. So if you have a schedule that's loaded with those teams, these are the type of games you need to win to try to get to be, first of all, bowl eligible.
So the point is, we've kind of gone through the different reasons of previous shows of what can make you eligible for the Gator Bowl, what cannot make you eligible for the Gator Bowl. We don't want to do rematches. We don't want to do previews. The ACC has days where they want you to rest on that for 2 to 3 years. The SEC doesn't have that, but it's still less likely for them to come here. Like Kentucky can come here, but it's probably not going to happen. South Carolina as well, because they've been here over the last couple of years. Are there any other disqualifiers that we need to, before we go out here and let people make their predictions?
No, I think, again, the SEC is wide open, because you don't know how many teams are going to be eligible. And this may be the only landing spot for like a South Carolina or Kentucky instead of a bowl that's out west. The ACC really prevents that from happening in their contract. So in essence, Clemson really can't come back here, and it would be very difficult to have Notre Dame back here. It doesn't exclude them, but there may be dynamics that work themselves out to where it's not the best scenario. We'd love to have Notre Dame again, but it's not the best scenario for those players to repeat a bowl site and fans as well 2 times in 3 years. It's happened before, but certain dynamics would have to really come into play for that to happen again.
All right. So with that information, I'm gonna challenge you people that's listening to this. Put your predictions in the comments. I got mine up there. Mine's on wax. You see it on the IG page. The local expert, James Coleman. I've got Louisville versus Oklahoma. That's who I believe will be in the Gator Bowl. What do we have? Not much has changed up there with the other experts. So we actually are arming you guys with way more information than what they have. So in the comments, put what you guys believe would be the selection, or what you would actually like to see at the TaxSlayer Gator Bowl, presented by Toyota here in Jacksonville, Florida, January 2nd. So again, each and every week, me and Greg McGarity come here. We break down what happened in college football the previous weekend and what's going to go on in the future as it relates to the TaxSlayer Gator Bowl here, January 2nd. And I'm Big Game James. And this is the TaxSlayer Gator Bowl Drive to Selection presented by Toyota. We will see you guys next week.